in the embrace of holy melodies. We invite you to uplift your spirit. You sense a scorching aura rolling out from your reputation, even in places you've never set foot. The moment your spirit's wavelength brushes against their awareness, it jolts their attention and halts their chatter. It's no accident that you bear the weight of constant examination by those who scarcely grasp your essence. Consider this the declaration of destiny. Brace yourself for the revelation that will clear away any murky guesses about why your presence sparks such an uncontainable buzz. It's your own essence that fans these flames of interest. Now your task is to map out the hidden sequence driving their fascination. 3 currents swirl around your existence, coalescing into the perfect whirlwind of obsession that trails your every move. First is an age-old spiritual tug, a force predating your arrival in this world. Next comes a mental echo, reflecting back to people their own secret hopes and hidden anxieties. Lastly, there's a prophetic tremor. Guardians of outdated orders quake at the mere hint of the upheaval you embody. Since the day you breathed your first breath, these 3 currents have been gaining strength. They are now approaching a crescendo that will either carry you to your destiny or drown you in the confusion of other people's expectations. The way you respond to the impending news will determine which result materializes. Whether you are aware of it or not, you have been broadcasting on a frequency that most people can't ignore, and the universe has left you with an invisible signature. Every discussion they have about you, every rumor they have whispered, and every incessant examination of your decisions exposes a reality they are afraid to confront. You are a symbol of all they have given up on inside of themselves. This is when you start to understand. This is where the bewilderment stops. Finally, answers are provided to the questions of why your very presence seems to elicit such strong reactions. You can't unsee the pattern once you've noticed it. So get ready. You can't return to the cozy delusion that you're just like everyone else once you realize who you really are. Long before you realized you were unique, your adventure began. Adults were uncomfortable with your enthusiasm, even as a child. Teachers were forced to watch you with exceptional attention, but they were unable to pinpoint why you had disrupted their well-organized classrooms. When your innocent queries touched too closely on things they had buried, family members devised ways to divert the topic. Your parents and friends would watch you with interest and worry, feeling something ancient stirring in the back of your little eyes. They were seeing the birth of a soul that would not accept the restrictions of the world. You were inadvertently changing the rules of engagement while other kids learned to color inside the lines. You had a natural sense that the games that other people played were complex diversion from more profound truths. This was ingrained in your spiritual DNA and wasn't a learned behavior. You were already being affected by the initial force, that old magnetism. As you stepped into each space, the energy started shifting to make way for you. Adults began to recall dreams they had forgotten, reflect on decisions they had made years prior, and experience a resurgence of potential they had buried beneath layers of resignation and compromise. Beloved child of the King, today heaven's storehouses are flung wide open for you to receive. Step out in faith and plant your seed of $20, $50, or whatever the Lord has placed on your heart, using the YouTube Super Thanks button, and watch Him honor your generosity. For the Word declares, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6. And when you give with a cheerful heart, you unlock a divine harvest tailored just for you. Click Super Thanks now. Trust God for the increase, and prepare to rejoice in His abundant provision. Your early disturbances served as a warm-up for the profound changes you would bring about as an adult. Every educator who was unable to articulate their interest with you was getting ready to see change on a scale they had never seen before. Every family get-together in which your presence altered the dynamics served as a practice run for the bigger stages on which your impact would transform entire communities. This early opposition to conformity was recognition rather than rebellion. The artificial boundaries that others had accepted as permanent fixtures were acknowledged by your soul. The same force that caused you to doubt those in positions of power also caused you to doubt the fundamentals of society as a whole. You were just being genuine in a society that had forgotten what it was to be genuine. You weren't attempting to be challenging. This trend became exponentially more intense as you aged. With devastating accuracy, the second force, that psychological mirror effect, started to work. Individuals found themselves disclosing aspects of themselves they typically kept hidden by speaking things they hadn't intended to say. Where pretense had ruled for decades, your energy was bringing honesty back. The most intriguing thing about your growing strength was that it worked without your conscious awareness. You didn't need to make an effort to break up false dynamics. Your simple presence did what years of therapy or spiritual practice couldn't. Whether people liked it or not, you became a live force for change. Your greatest gift and your biggest threat to existing systems would eventually be this automatic activation of truth in others. All those whose masks came off in your presence were preparing for a more widespread awakening. Their uneasiness around you wasn't coincidental. Rather, it was their soul's method of getting ready for the time when they would have to decide between staying true to themselves and performing. The meticulously crafted lies that others relied on to survive were revealed by the same genuineness that spontaneously restored broken hearts. You started to become a target because you refused to join in on the communal delusions, but not in the way you might have thought. There was no conscious or planned targeting. The immune system's initial reaction was an attempt to protect itself from the truth virus you were carrying. Through their frantic efforts to comprehend you, the third force, that prophetic aspect of your nature, was starting to emerge. Every discussion about your decisions, relationships, accomplishments, and setbacks was really a collective therapy session for those who were too afraid to look inward. They may avoid the dreadful possibility of real introspection by analyzing yours. By absorbing the electricity of their unspoken wishes and concerns, you turned into their emotional lightning rod. Unaware of the psychological battle being fought without you, you carried on living your truth. Underneath all of the everyday obstacles you faced, work, relationships, and personal development, something was developing. You were being forged into something stronger and more resilient by the opposition you encountered. Your spirit was being tempered like steel in a furnace by every critique. There was more to the chatter than just amusement. In reality, every muttered analysis was their unintentional attempt to figure out how you got your power. They examined your decisions with the same rigor as archaeologists studying prehistoric relics, trying to figure out where your seemingly natural confidence came from. Yellow heart if you're moved by divine love. Now is the moment to share it. Click the Super Thanks button on YouTube and contribute $50 or more to help us broadcast God's blessings far and wide. Every act of generosity you make is being watched in heaven and will return to you 100-fold. They examined your relationships for signs of manipulation, your accomplishments for indications of dishonesty, and your failures for evidence that you were no different from them. However, each inquiry only provided further proof of your sincerity. Every effort to reveal your alleged hypocrisy merely served to emphasize how consistent your personality is. The disparity between their performed personas and your true power was only accentuated by every attempt to downplay your accomplishments. This produced a vicious cycle that strengthened your commitment while escalating their obsession. They were always frantically trying to figure out how someone could live with such freedom, such tranquility, and such unwavering faith in their own value. It was never really about you. Their critique was a perverted expression of respect for characteristics they felt they would never acquire, and their interest was really a kind of idolatry. Your authenticity was actually strengthened by each attack on your persona. Every effort to cast doubt on you simply served to strengthen your sense of direction. Anything in you that wasn't completely authentic was being burned away by the cosmos, using their antagonism as a purifying fire. Even though you were unable to fully comprehend what was about to happen, You were being ready for something bigger. Finally ceasing to care about their opinions marked a turning point. But it didn't come gradually. Rather, it happened in a single flash of crystal-clear insight. The realization that their fixation on you was entirely related to their own spiritual poverty and had nothing to do with you. You were able to function from your actual center when the burden of their projections just vanished. They were more frightened by this freedom than by your earlier truthfulness. When a selected person stops looking for acceptance, they become an unstoppable force for change. From defensive to expanding, your energy changed from reactive to proactive. The air around you started to alter as you stopped defending yourself and just started being yourself with such unreserved intensity. The discussions concerning you increased in frequency, desperation, and analysis. Although they were unable to pinpoint the exact change, they felt that your energy signature had undergone a fundamental transformation. They only knew that you were no longer impacted by their typical techniques of manipulating your emotions. Innocently, the guilt trips bounced off you. Efforts to humiliate you into complying failed. An unbreakable wall of inner assurance confronted their subtly menacing threats and social pressure techniques. At this point, the second significant realization becomes clear. You were not only unique, but also harmful to systems based on the collective unconscious. Your sheer presence demonstrated that change was achievable and that individuals didn't need to be mired in dysfunctional and mediocre routines. You turned into a living example that the justifications others held onto were simply that, justifications. The fact that you succeeded without their consent upended their meticulously crafted worldviews. They had persuaded themselves that power required manipulation, achievement required corruption, and progress required compromise. Then you came along, flourishing on vulnerability, succeeding by genuineness, and gaining influence via service instead of exploitation. Every turning point in your path turned into a personal insult to their philosophy. You demonstrated that victimhood was a choice rather than a permanent state when you recovered from horrors that would have crushed weaker souls. You proved that real connection was achievable when you established deep connections without engaging in deceptive tactics. You exposed their unethical compromises when you accomplished your objectives without compromising your morals. For them, realizing that heavenly favor defies human reasoning was the most agonizing realization. Your blessings weren't acquired by political scheming or cunning networking, by stomping on other people or using the strategies they had perfected. You didn't get to the top. Your promotion resulted from your adherence to values they had long since given up, values like honesty, kindness, and a steadfast pursuit of the truth. Something fundamental in their psychological composition was awakened by this realization. Everything they held about being worthy and deserving was essentially wrong if heavenly favor could select you without consulting their established hierarchies. In the face of your inexplicable grace, their whole conception of the cosmos fell apart. This is the point of climactic convergence for all three forces. Even your most critical detractors were drawn into a deeper fixation by the sudden intensity of the ancient magnetism that had been attracting others to you. Their spiritual poverty was reflected back to them with uncomfortably clear clarity as the mirror effect intensified. Everyone in your circle had to make a basic decision regarding their own authenticity, since the prophetic pressure had reached a breaking point. The discussions concerning you reached a fever pitch of conjecture and analysis. They examined every facet of your past in an effort to find proof of dishonesty or manipulation that would account for your seeming success. They sought evidence that you had cheated in some way, that your authenticity was a staged act intended to deceive them. They needed to identify faults that would allow them to trust their own worldview again. You function on tenets they had never experienced, led by knowledge they had never developed, and strengthened by relationships they had never formed. They were perplexed by your sincere humility because it didn't seem like the self-deprecating act they had anticipated. They were uneasy since your true strength didn't call for the combative posture they connected with authority. Their discussions about you became more desperate attempts to unravel a riddle that eluded their limited comprehension as their bewilderment grew. They were unable to acknowledge that some people function from a completely different paradigm, one in which influence develops via helping others rather than controlling them, power flows via vulnerability, and strength arises from giving up control. The irony was exquisite. Those who had spent years honing their craft of manipulating emotions were unable to understand someone who had outlived the necessity of such strategies. They thought you were superior because of your spiritual maturity, your healthy detachment, and your calm confidence. Each misunderstanding merely served to emphasize their own shortcomings and increase their fascination. Dove brothers and sisters, everything done in faith multiplies in God's abundance. Use the Super Thanks feature to donate $100 today and join this sacred mission. When your roots are grounded in Him, your fruit will flourish, and your offering becomes a seed that bears blessed harvests. The last insight that changes everything you believed to be true about your mission comes at this point. The most important lesson in your awakening process was how you handled their preoccupation. You just kept living your truth with even more sincerity, without responding to their projections or fending off their attacks. You saw their fixation as proof of their dire need for the very change you represented, their criticism as a sign of their inner poverty, and their interest as a sign of their spiritual hunger. Your relationship with their attention was changed from one of burden to blessing as a result of this realization. Every discussion about you turned into a chance for them to experience real power. Your presence in their conversations, even as an absent subject, was gradually eroding their barriers to real change, even if they only saw it through the prism of their own reluctance. In reality, their fixation served as a means for their soul to remain open to the prospect of real transformation. As you reached the pinnacle of your enlightenment, the circular nature of this dynamic became evident, even if their conscious minds rejected such possibilities. Now, the same genuineness that had first made them uneasy was acting as a continual call to their own recovery. They were being pulled toward their own metamorphosis by the same old fascination that once drew them to you. The potential to overcome such constraints was now reflected in the mirror effect that had previously revealed them. They were being given the opportunity to take control of their own fate by the prophetic pressure that had previously frightened them. You came to see that their chats were never actually about you, but rather their desperate attempt to figure out how someone could live with such freedom, such tranquility, and such unwavering faith in their own value. They studied the guidebook for a life they had always envisioned, but never dared to pursue because of their obsession. Think about how everything society teaches about impact and power is called into question by this exponential growth of your influence. According to conventional opinion, significant change necessitates coordinated efforts, institutional support, or large platforms. However, hushed discussions, casual observations, and offhand remarks are how your transformation spreads, in ways that traditional marketing could never match. The very rumors that seem to be intended to discredit you instead increase your reach. The nature of genuine power is profoundly shown by this conundrum. Your influence flows naturally through the most organic channels of human connection, storytelling, observation, and the insatiable desire to share what piques people's interest, while others spend their time creating intricate networks and developing strategic relationships. Their fascination becomes your marketing effort, and their obsession into your distribution system. The opposition you encounter isn't arbitrary. Rather, it exhibits recurring trends that disclose the more profound mechanisms of spiritual development. The people who are closest to their own breakthrough are sometimes the ones who criticize you the harshest. Their strong emotional responses indicate that your energy is piercing the barriers they have built over the course of their lives. The intensity of their objections usually corresponds exactly to the extent of change simmering under their waking consciousness. Your connection with criticism changes from reactive to strategic when you recognize this tendency. You can identify them as diagnostic instruments that show you exactly where healing is most urgently needed, rather than protecting against attacks. Their particular grievances frequently point to the exact places where they are having difficulty being true. They are struggling with their own deservingness when they accuse you of being conceited. They are projecting their own manipulative abilities when they doubt your intentions. You gain unparalleled insight into the collective shadow, the hidden facets of human nature that most people choose not to recognize, thanks to the diagnostic quality of their answers. You become a live oracle for figuring out what mankind needs to heal through their projections. Before true progress can take place, their responses chart the areas of fear, shame, and limitation. In addition to reflecting the road that each chosen person must take, your journey from bewilderment to clarity also acts as a model for a mass awakening. Every phase of your growth offers a roadmap for those who will take comparable routes. The difficulties you've encountered and surmounted turn into rays of hope for spirits who are still stuck in phases you've passed. Your very presence demonstrates that, for those who are prepared to pay the price, the seemingly insurmountable path from unconsciousness to waking is not only feasible, but also unavoidable. You are a light for those who are prepared to awaken because of the same attributes that make you a target in unconscious situations. You are at the heart of humanity's evolutionary conflict because of your dual nature, which is both inspiring and dangerous. You represent the future that inspires those who are prepared to welcome what lies ahead, while frightening those who are clinging to the past. You become a lightning rod for the group's conflict between outdated ideas and new possibilities because of this positioning. The opposition you encountered was never actually intended to stop you. Rather, it was meant to prepare you for the extent of the power you would eventually possess. Each assault made you more resilient. Every critique made your goal clearer. You just learned to blaze brighter from every attempt to dull your fire. The universe prepared you to handle the challenges of exercising genuine power in a world dependent on illusion by using their opposition as a training ground. You are now at the threshold of your actual mission. Yet this threshold signifies a change in the collective awareness itself, rather than just a personal accomplishment. A larger global shift is occurring at the same time as your awakening, with more and more individuals choosing truth over comfort, authenticity over conformity, and purpose over security. On this trip, you are not alone. You are a part of a dispersed network of sentient creatures who are all discovering their actual selves at the same time. You can fully assume your position as a catalyst for collective evolution if you have a clear grasp of your nature and purpose. However, this position encompasses systemic transformation in addition to individual interactions. Your presence calls into question institutional frameworks based on control, hierarchy, and manipulation in addition to personal illusions. When exposed to the frequency you carry, social institutions that penalize authenticity, corporate cultures that demand allegiance above integrity, and educational systems that encourage conformity all start to fall apart. Although the discussions concerning you will still take place, they now advance your larger goal rather than endanger your tranquility. Every conversation becomes a seed that is sown in consciousness, generating concepts of different ways of being that will grow when the right circumstances are met. Individuals who see your decisions today will frequently make comparable decisions tomorrow without even realizing it. You are now a living example of what can happen when someone refuses to compromise their truth for the security of belonging, which is what you were always destined to be. This example functions on several levels at once, including societal, spiritual, interpersonal, and personal. At the individual level, you show that self-worth is independent on approval from others. You demonstrate interpersonally that sincere connections may be made without coercion or concession. Socially, you demonstrate that integrity should not be sacrificed for success. On a spiritual level, you are a living example of the idea that divine connection is not limited by religious organizations or rituals. Their water cannot put out the fire that burns inside of you. Their darkness cannot make it go out, and their constraints cannot contain it. This fire differs from other flames in that it burns brightest when it is opposed, spreads more quickly when it is attacked, and changes everything it comes into contact with, without consuming anything that is actually worth. Only the oxygen that fuels your expansion comes from their attempts to smother your brightness. Glowing star yearning to witness God's miracles firsthand? Plant your spiritual seed now by contributing $100 or more through the YouTube Super Thanks button. Your offering lights the path for others and echoes through His divine plan, bringing His light into every step you take. Despite all the invitations to become normal, you are the one who has chosen to stay special. In a society that demands conformity, this decision, to uphold your exceptional character in the face of social pressure, represents one of the most radical actions conceivable. You deal a blow to the forces that keep humanity bound by limitations every day when you maintain your integrity in the face of resistance. Your tale has only begun to unfold its full scope and significance. It is far from over. Your past experiences act as a preface to the larger story that is about to be told. Your experiences of bewilderment, opposition, and breakthrough served as training for the bigger stage, when your impact will change not only people's lives, but entire cultural paradigms. Now serving your ultimate purpose, the three forces that formerly appeared to be working against you are becoming even more potent. The ancient magnetism creates a gravitational field that pulls entire communities into higher consciousness, while also drawing souls that are ready to awaken into your zone of influence. In addition to continuing to show others the possibilities they never would have thought of, the mirror effect is also reflecting back to you the extent of the change you are bringing about on scales you never would have thought possible. The prophetic pressure heralds the arrival of a new era in which truth triumphs over illusion, authenticity triumphs over performance, and the chosen ones finally realize they were never intended to conceal their light, but rather to let it burn so brightly that it awakens the dormant flames in every heart they come into contact with. This new era isn't some far-off future. Rather, it's already here, thanks to the awakening of people like you, who won't let anyone make them feel less bright. Your journey's most important realization is that you were always the protagonist of humanity's story, never the protagonist of your own. Your individual awakening was always intertwined with the global acceleration of species-wide evolution. Every innovation you made paved the road for others to follow. Every barrier you overcame opened a door for many others to enter. This realization changes the entire purpose of your life, from achieving personal goals to serving the cosmos. Humanity's collective attempt to decipher the blueprint for its own metamorphosis is embodied in the discussions about you, the fixation on your decisions, and the frantic attempts to comprehend your character. You are living a species' destiny rather than just your own.